Hi everyone, today I am going to present you the topic How I Taught My Grandmother to Read by Sudha Murthy. I am G.Nilanandhini, Assistant Professor of English, A.D.M. College for Women, Nagapattinam. First we can see about author introduction, Sudha Murthy. Sudha Kulkarni Murthy is multifaceted personality. She is an Indian educator, author, brilliant technocrat and philanthropist who has made significant contribution to literature and social issues. She was born in 1950 in Shigaon in North Karnataka. She began her professional career in computer science and engineering. She did M.Tech in computer science and she teaches computer science to postgraduate students. She is the first female engineer hired at India's largest auto manufacturer Tata Engineering and Locomotive Company. While working, she met her N.R. Narayanan Murthy, who is the co-founder of Infosys, and married him. She is the chairperson of the Infosys Foundation and a member of public healthcare initiatives of the Gates Foundation. Her writing career. Despite her successful career in the tech industry, Sudha Murthy found her true calling in her writing and social work. Sudha Murthy is a prominent writer in Kannada and English literature. She started her literary career by writing fictions in Kannada and later wrote in English as well. She has written and published many books which include novels, non-fictions, travelogues, technical books and memoirs. She is also columnist for English and Kannada newspapers. She has written many books for children, youth and adults. Her books have been translated into all major Indian languages. Over 3 lakh copies of her novels have been sold throughout India and have been translated into all major Indian languages. Her works have been adapted into movies and television serials. She is known for her simple, heartfelt storytelling that revolves around her social issues, human values and loves of ordinary people. Her writings are known for their brevity, relatability and emphasis on her moral values. Her work reflects her deep empathy for others and her commitment to use her talents and resources for betterment of society. Her renowned works are How I Taught My Grandmother to Read and Other Stories, Wise and Otherwise, Dollar Bahu, The Mother I Never Knew, The Old Man and His God, 3000 Stitches, etc. Sudha Murthy's writing, philanthropic work have made her highly respected and influential figure in India. She has received several awards and distinctions for her achievements, including the R.K. Narayanan Award for Literature, the Padma Shri, the 4th highest civilian award in India for social work in 2006, and Padma Bhushan, the 3rd highest civilian award in India in 2023. First, let us see about the book How I Taught My Grandmother to Read and Other Stories. How I Taught My Grandmother to Read and Other Stories is a wonderful collection of 25 short stories, each packed with bundle of wisdom. It is a semi-autobiographical. She has picked out anecdotes from her own life to present to the readers a book that shows them the forgotten values of life. It is very inspiring. The book goes through her journey from childhood to adulthood, from her career, a corporate to compassionate teacher to critical thinker, and from a wife to mother. It is specially written for children. It has all experience, life values and learnings which a person should have at any age. It is a wonderful book which engages and makes the reader desire to read more and more. Murthy has so much to convey in each story that one can take out at least 2 morals from each story. Elements such as learning has no age bar, teachers should be respected irrespective of age and gender, books are valuable, you should be caring egoless, never disrespect people, there is always a start at any age, nothing is impossible, excellence comes by practice, not by accident, donate the first best to anyone and not the second best, respect your grandparents and education is essential. Always be kind with your guests. Your motherland is always your heaven. The real jewelry is education. Everything will perish over a period of time. Flowers, beauty, food, and many others. She writes that no person looks beautiful forever, but education brings confidence to your face, and that is real beauty. Some other takeaways from the book are that if one man studies and only one person is educated, whereas one lady studies, the entire family is educated. Generous grandmother, religious grandfather, dutiful daughter, responsible son, successful husband, wise mother, comic cousin, ungrateful classmate, and her own self are highlighted in the book. Narration style of Sudhamurthy is so simple and characters leave a special place in reader's mind. Stories from a personal note are so interesting read that one could follow the path of her journey to be a person like her. Next we can see about the short story How I Taught My Grandmother to Read. This short story How I Taught My Grandmother to Read is a narrator's reminiscence about teaching her grandmother to read and write in Kannada language. The title of How I Taught My Grandmother to Read is really very appropriate and suggestive because the narrator was talking about the way she taught her grandmother to read. The story is written in first person by the granddaughter. Sudhamurthy is the narrator of the story. She felt a great sense of achievement in helping her grandmother to read. Hence, she has given this account the title How I Taught My Grandmother to Read. How I Taught My Grandmother to Read is the story of an old woman who ventured to learn to read and write at the age of 62. She believed that age was no bar for learning. Her sincere efforts and determination bore fruit and she accomplished her mission to read independently within a short span of time. She gave due respect to her teacher, who happened to her 12-year-old granddaughter. It is a tale of desire to learn and humility, required to learn at any age and from anyone. Sudhamurthy describes the determined efforts of an illiterate old lady, Krishnaka, to make herself literate. This short story book is showcasing the pure and warm relationship between a grandmother and her granddaughter. Then we can see about the short story How I Taught My Grandmother to Read. The narrator was 12 years old and she used to stay in a village in North Karnataka with her grandparents. Her grandmother name is Krishnaka and she was 62 years old. The narrator used to call her grandmother Avva because she taught her grandmother as a mother. So Avva in Karnataka means a mother. So to the narrator, the grandmother is a motherly figure. At that time, Triveni was very popular writer in Kannada language. She was a wonderful writer. Her style was easy to read and quite convincing. Her stories dealt with complex problems in the lives of ordinary people. One of her novels, Kashi Yatra, was appearing as a serial in Kannada magazine Karmavira. Since there were very few diversions, the entire family would eagerly wait for a weekly magazine. Every Wednesday, the magazine Karmavira would come. The narrator's grandmother never went to school, hence she couldn't read or write. So the grandmother would ask her granddaughter to read the next episode of the story to her. The grandmother would not only listen with a great attention, but also memorize it by heart. Later, she would discuss it with friends in the temple courtyard. This was her favorite pastime. The novel Kashi Yatra dealt with a protagonist's struggle to visit Kashi. It was a story of old lady who desired to go to Kashi to worship Lord Vishweshwara. In the story, there was also a young orphan girl. She could not marry because she had no money for the wedding. In the end, the old lady gives away all her savings to the girl's wedding without going to Kashi. She considered the happiness of the orphan girl more important than even worshipping Lord Vishweshwara at Kashi. Since grandmother too never went to Kashi, she identified herself with the trials and tribulations of the main characters. One day, the narrator had to go to the neighboring village for a cousin's wedding. She went for a couple of days but overstayed there for a week. When she returned, she was surprised to see her grandmother in tears. She had never seen the old lady cry even in the most difficult circumstances. At night, the grandmother narrated how her past life she had lost her grandmother when she was just a young girl. There was nobody to look after and guide her. Her father married again. Moreover, education for girls was not considered as important in those days. So she never went to school. She got married very young. Then bringing up children kept her busy, sparing no time for education of any kind. The grandmother felt so happiness in cooking and feeding all her children. At times, she used to regret out not going to school. She had learned a lesson, so she made sure that her children and grandchildren studied well. When the narrator was away, Karmavira came as usual. She opened the magazine, but grandmother couldn't even read a letter of it. Without a granddaughter, she had tough time trying to despair and guess the next episode of Kashi Yatra. She felt very desperate and helpless, mutely gazing at the pictures, unable to read a single word. However, since she was illiterate, she knew that she could not read the magazine. She again wished that she had received her education. She waited eagerly for narrator to return home. However, the narrator had extended her visit to the neighboring village, discouraging her grandmother. The grandmother then thought of going to the village and asking someone there to read for her, but she felt too ashamed to ask for each such help. She felt very dependent and helpless. She added that she did not have a shortage of money, but money couldn't compensate for lack of education. Money was no use if she could not be independent. So the grandmother decided to learn the Kannada alphabet from the next day onwards. The narrator consoled her and promised to teach her from the next day. The grandmother decided to work very hard. She kept the Saraswati Puja day during the Dasara as the deadline. That day, she could be able to read a novel on her own. She wanted to be independent. The narrator saw the determination on her face, yet she laughed at the decision of her grandmother. She made fun of the old lady, but her grandmother just smiled and said nothing. Dasara festival came as usual, and it was finally the time for grandmother's knowledge to be put into test. The novel Kashi Yatra had been published by that time. The narrator secretly bought a copy of the novel as a gift for her grandmother. The grandmother called her granddaughter to the puja place and made her sit on a stool. She gave her a gift of a frock material. Then the grandmother did something unusual. She bent down and touched the feet of granddaughter. The narrator was taken aback. The narrator was both surprised and shocked at the same time. She was surprised because her grandmother had never touched her feet before, and she was shocked because what she did was not correct. Elders never touch the feet of young people. In fact, only the feet of God, elders and teachers were to be touched. Touching the feet of someone is even seen as a mark of respect in the Hindu religion. It is a tradition which has been followed till date, but the reverse of the tradition occurred that day. The narrator felt like it was not correct. The grandmother must have noticed the shock on the narrator's face. She explained that she was not touching the feet of her granddaughter, but she was touching the feet of her teacher. She was giving respect to the teacher who performed her role excellently with affection and love. The narrator taught her in a short period while having no prior experience of being a teacher. The narrator helped her because independent, and it was her duty to respect such a teacher. It was written in their scriptures that the teacher should be respected regardless of their gender and age. Then the narrator turned the namaskara by touching grandmother's feet and giving her the gift. Here the namaskara means she returned the gesture of respect. This indicates the elders are to be respected even if they are our students. The grandmother opened the gift and it turned out to be Kashiyatra, her favorite tale. She read the title Kashiyatra by Triveni and the publisher's name immediately. With this, the narrator knew that her student had passed and achieved a great success in learning the Kannada alphabet. Then let us see the theme of the short story, How I Taught My Grandmother to Read. The main theme of the story is that the age is no bar to learning. Additionally, the second theme is a desire to succeed, and it has been well displayed through the desire of grandmother to succeed in reading Kashiyatra on her own. The third theme of the story is the power of education. Actually, the grandmother used to feel independent, but it was only education that made her dependent. So throughout the story, the narrator Sudhamurthy works on the idea of power of literacy and education. So to conclude the story, How I Taught My Grandmother to Read deals with the number of themes, and all of them seem to be very appropriate after reading the story. First one, there is no age for learning. It is proved to the personality of grandmother who desired to learn at the age of 62. It is a big message for all the readers, so we should be discouraged by taking the point of the age. If we have to start learning, it is never too late. The story is a highlight of an important issue, providing education to all irrespective of their age or gender. A teacher, irrespective of age and gender, deserves to be respected. We see in the story that the grandmother, who was 62 years old, touches the feet of her granddaughter, thinking that she was her teacher. This is the second learning. The education makes us independent, so we should be educated. We see this through the personality of the grandmother. Earlier, when the grandmother did not know how to read and write, she was dependent on her granddaughter. After learning to read and write, she started reading on her own. This means education reduced her dependency. Thus, we should understand the importance of education and start our learning. The story bears a theme of love and human relationship. It also depicts that the true development of a country is impossible unless we create an atmosphere of education for everyone. The short story emphasizes on strong will that can cross many barriers of self and society at elder age too. The story is about a passion and devotion to learning. It takes hard work but also determination and a sense of humility. If the grandmother thought that her granddaughter was too young or inexperienced to teach her, she would have not been able to learn from her. One should lower one's pride and arrogance to open the doors of knowledge and understanding. Then let us discuss about the characteristics of the granddaughter. She is 12 years old and living with her grandparents. The granddaughter was very caring, innocent, irresponsible child, and it was her caring attitude that made her to read out her illiterate grandmother about her next episode of her favorite short story every week diligently. Her innocence gets highlighted when she first makes a fun of her grandmother's resolution of getting literate at the age of 62 years. We got to see how responsible she is when she takes her grandmother's decision as a challenge and works hard along with her to teach her Kannada alphabets. The word Avva is a word in Kannada language which means a mother. The language is used in North Karnataka, where the narrator and her grandparents lived. The narrator used to refer to her grandmother using the word Avva. Even though she was not her mother, it means that even though Krishnaka was narrator's grandmother, the narrator saw her more as a motherly figure. Then let us discuss about a characteristic of grandmother. Krishnaka is a 62 years old and living in North Karnataka. She is the grandmother and narrator and depends on narrator for reading her favorite novel Kashiyatra to become an independent reader. Krishnaka is the grandmother who could not get education because of death of her mother in her young age. Also, educating a girl was not considered essential. So she accepted the fate and concentrate on her family. She decided to be an independent reader. She is very emotional. When she could not find anyone to read Kashi Yatra, she cries a lot. Krishnaka is a good student as she can grasp things very quickly. She also respects her teacher, her granddaughter, by touching her feet. She said that her granddaughter made her to be a good student. She said that her hair had become grey, her hands were wrinkled, and she wore spectacles and had much work in the kitchen. And she still wanted to learn something new. And thank you.